That's all we need. Hello and welcome to a special edition of the Tigers Down Under. Coming to you off the back of the breaking news of Tim Volter's dismissal at Hull City. And with me to discuss this, I have Dan. How are you, Dan?
Yeah, I'm not too bad.
And we've also got Dill. How are you, Dill?
Brilliant. Doing good.
Doing good. Feeling a bit more optimistic. I mean, it's a strange one. I sort of messaged out this morning that it's a strange situation because you don't necessarily want to celebrate someone losing their job, but at the same time, for all parties concerned, I think for Volter as well, we'll talk a little bit about that Sheffield Wednesday performance itself, but I think his family were in attendance at that game, and I can't imagine it was pleasant for them with the reaction from the supporters on the full-time whistle. So, as much for his own mental health and well-being, it seemed a relationship that was best to see everyone go their own ways. But how did you take the news, first of all, Dill?
I think we kind of saw it coming in some ways. I think there was a few rumors popping around, but I don't know. I think everyone kind of came to that conclusion at the end of the day that he probably needed to move on. And yeah, I didn't realize his family were in attendance there, so that would have been a bit hard. But I don't know. I think, like you said, I think it's best for all parties involved, including the fans himself. I couldn't imagine how stressful it is having to go into those interviews after the game and, I don't know, make up some things like he used to. But yeah.
Yeah, so because you posted that image from the Hull Daily Mail interview where he said that, the world's against us sort of thing. And you see, I mean, I shouldn't laugh because you see that sort of thing, and that really does speak to somebody who's very, like he's feeling the pressure, he's feeling the weight of expectation from everyone, which must be pretty tough.
Yeah, there's a few ways of sort of looking at that where I think if the players were openly behind, like getting behind him, then I guess it makes a bit more sense saying that the world's against us. But it didn't seem like anyone was behind him except Acun. Like, I think he said that he.
Oh, sorry, you meant that. I was thinking you're going to say he's putting a knife in his back.
Oh no, I mean, well, it still happened, but yeah, I don't know. It's I mean, it's a shame for him, obviously, but we all needed that, I think.
Yeah, and actually, speaking of Acun, it was interesting, Dan, before the Sheffield Wednesday game, Acun coming out and saying, sort of regardless of the result, Volter's job was safe, which turned out not to be the case. You can sort of understand why he had to say that just before the game to, you're not going to say if he loses the game, we're going to sack him, but it does make a bit of a, I don't know, funny situation when 24 hours later you kind of turn around and do it anyway.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where, as you say, he's kind of backed into a bit of a corner there. He has to sort of say that, especially leading into the game, because if he goes out and says or indicates in any way that Walter's job wasn't safe, well, players already don't seem to be performing, or some aren't performing that well for him anyway. If all of a sudden he's going to be gone, then the game doesn't matter at all. So they, maybe we get, you end up with an even worse performance. But I think it sort of then also sort of counts against Acun in some ways, because it's going to be one of those things where you go, well, can we trust what he says now? There's been a couple of moments like that throughout his ownership, and I don't think that those moments should be held against him for eternity. But it's sort of those, if you want to get nitpicky, there's a few of those instances where he sort of said one thing and then not too long after done something differently. So I don't know. It's a situation. I think, like, as we kind of alluded to, we've all sort of seen it coming. The writing's been on the wall for a little while. We made jokes, I think in the last episode, about the comments about if they score one, we'll score two, and and then we have another scoreless game. And how long do you keep a job when you're promising goals and attacking football, and you're drawing blanks 3-4 sort of games in a row, or 4 out of 6 games or something? Like, it's just pretty atrocious. And as we say, apart from that little blitz of the 3 wins, we haven't really looked like scoring regularly at all. So writing's on the wall, had to happen, but I guess, I think it's better now than, because my fear was, I think I said on one of the recent episodes that it was going to happen, December 28th, and we were going to go into January, and we may still go into January, looking for a manager. Acun's promised a thorough recruitment search, but like I just, we've got at least a little bit of time. We've got a month essentially to sort of to shortlist, have interviews, bring someone in line for that, and hopefully, if we can get it done in 2 or 3 weeks, they get a couple of games with the squad, a little bit of training, they can come into January going, okay, I think this is where we need to strengthen, and hopefully we can salvage this season, because seems like only yesterday I was on here saying that my last little flame of hope had been extinguished.
It's flickering again.
Yeah, like a phoenix rising from the ashes. It's we are reborn, but I guess it really depends on the the appointment of the next manager. I think it's going to be an interesting decision, because I think there's been lots and lots of talk over like all of Acun's tenure that we should be looking for an experienced championship manager. That's what we need. We need someone British, and we need someone who knows the division and knows what it takes to get results. And interestingly enough, there's a couple of decent names that fit those categories that are available at the moment. So whether they're interested in the project, and I think it's I guess the flip again, it's hard trying to sell this as a project when, as I mentioned, as we talked about on the pod the other day, that like 4 managers in 2 years or something, like it's just, there's a lot of turnover. So to be sold a project, and then you go, well, Volta was here on a project, 3-year contract, and lasted 16 games. So I think it's going to be tough.
You talk about salvaging the season. It is remarkable when you look at the table and you think like we're only 3 points off mid-table essentially. Like it's a win, and you could say, we haven't won in 9 games, but a new manager, like if Dawson goes out there and snatches a win against all odds against Borough, all of a sudden like that can just turn the mood of the club immediately. So it's not doom and gloom. It's not like we're cut adrift at the bottom of the table just yet. So I think there is still a lot of optimism that the season can be salvaged, which it's a bit depressing to think that salvaging the season is a mid-table finish. We're not even talking the potential of playoffs, but I think a lot will rest on the manager that we get. But just before we talk potential new managers, did want to run through sort of the game itself that was the death knell for Volta. And once again, like it's a really similar story. Like we talk about the performance, at least in the first half, wasn't actually terrible. Like yes, Sheffield Wednesday had a number of good chances to score, and that's probably the worst aspect. But Slater flicking the ball over the defender and then having it saved point blank range, and Simon's having a shot tipped onto the post. Like there were really good chances there where on another day you score the goals. But like, I don't know, Dill, like, does it almost feel a little bit like it does feel harsh on Volta to an extent when you just see these games again and again where you go, look, we're doing a lot right. We're just not putting the ball away.
I guess that's just the championship at the end of the day. It's we've spoken about it before a few times where it's a game of inches, and Walter, I don't know. It's you could look at it like, we've had so many of those games where it was a near miss. It could have gone in. We would have won that. And like you were saying before, if we won that game, we'd be closer to mid-table, and we might not be having these conversations in this light. But I don't know. It's I don't know. I don't really see. I sort of see it like in a statistical way that like if even every single team's going to go through these games, and the ones that are coming out on top are the ones that have their shit together. And unfortunately, we don't have our shit together at the moment. And as soon as we sort of figure that out, then the those shots, like Simmons or whoever, they go in. It's almost omen-like. So yeah.
And it's those intangibles as well, where you don't have that extra 10% motivation or structure or discipline that the manager would instill, because I think it was Slater. There was that stoppage in the first half because of the injury, and everyone's kind of gathered around Volta, and Slater's almost on the other side of the pitch. Gets hooked at halftime. Slater seems the perfect candidate to me to be someone that's going to just bound into form post Volta, because it just seemed as clear as day that they didn't get along. But yeah, Dan, what was your take on, I guess, another, we've talked about this every week. It feels like, the Luton game and other games as well, where we've created reasonable chances and just not put them away.
Yeah, look, I think I'm kind of just parroting what I said the other day. Like, is it all on Walter's head? Probably not. I think there's an element of player responsibility where they needed to step up, and some of some of those, which are near misses, the intangibles, swings and roundabouts, all that sort of stuff. But like, as you say, like, are they were all the players really 100% committed behind Walter? And it doesn't really seem that way. And I think that goes a long way to explaining why a lot of these half chances aren't turning into goals. It's just that the extra effort to push yourself that little bit more, to be in that right position, to be that little bit more composed, to do all those things for the manager that's got your back, or the players around you, or whatever. And it doesn't really seem like that that everyone's been on the same page. So just sort of the same old. But I think that the first half wasn't too bad. It was, look, I mean, we were promised entertaining football. I have to say the first half was entertaining.
It's very end to end, yeah.
Yeah, it was basketball match sort of, like, or like, like play, like, as you say, end to end, lots of good opportunities. I'm not even sold on the penalty, to be honest.
It looked pretty soft, yeah.
It looked soft. I think then there was a one later, which the commentator said from Drama, that he said that one was an even bigger, more clearer shout for a penalty than the first one. And I was like, looked at the replay, I was like, he got his foot in front, hit it back with his heel, and then like the foot, like, then the Wednesday bloke like trips over, and I was like, that's not a penalty either. I was like, anyway, but it's one of those things where when you're down in the championship, it really just feels like at every opportunity you're getting kicked while you're down. And I think it is what it is. I'm really just interested in now in, like, how do we rebound from that? Like, we go, it got, we go on to Dawes, and I think I said in the chat, I think he's got that connection to the club, that I think he should be able to motivate these boys and rouse them to about their connection to the club and what they're playing for and who they're playing for, in a way that Volta just wouldn't have understood or been able to communicate. So, and I think it's part of the reason why Rosinia was so successful and got so much out of those players last season, and when he came in as well at the end of that previous season. So I think we'll see, like, a nice little. I think we'll simplify the game. We'll get an improved level of effort from players, and I'm really just hopeful that we can start to turn around, turn this ship around, start moving in the right direction. And that doesn't necessarily mean winning games instantly, but as you say, like, if we grind out a 0 or draw, or or something, then I'd start to feel a little bit more comfortable about what's going on. I think we have the players there to compete. I don't think we have a particularly weak squad. We have, like, we have reasonable depth across the squad. I think the strikers at the moment are the weakest, but even then, like, if they hit form, like, then I think they'll be fine. Like, you look at Oscar, and the strikers have got comparable quality to Oscar, and because I don't think he was really that good, but he started off, scored a couple of goals, and then he was equal with the top scorers in the division for, like, the first third or something of the season just because of
Yeah.
how he got off to a flyer and just scored some goals. And I think you get someone, and I really hope Burstow gets a bit of a chance in the next couple of games so we can see what sort of he's capable of. But
And that's,
one
and
of them
I think that,
can yeah.
I think that's
One
a
of them
really
gets
good
going.
one. Like Kamara, Burstow, who's the other one I'm thinking? Well, Slater, obviously, but there's just a few players where, like Kamara, for example, I feel like he came on and debuted, got hooked at halftime on his debut, and just there's been that sort of disconnect between him and Volta since, like, Volta always playing him on the left wing. Even I think Volta came out recently and said, I know he played really well on the right wing last season, but I'm going to play him on the left. And you're like, why? So between him, Burstow, a few others, I'm just like, you'd hope that there'll be that encouragement that it's a fresh start and to see what they can do for City. Just as a last one on the game, though, Dill, talking lack of effort or poor quality, that second goal for Wednesday right at the end, Hughes had been taken off, which again was just a really strange decision. Coyle, I think, was at centre back, and then you watch it back, like it's pretty poor tracking from Coyle, just sort of ball watching, and his man just drops back for the easiest of goals. You want to talk about players dropping their heads or players throwing in the towel. I think that pretty much exemplified it.
Yeah, I don't know why they took off Hughes. I wasn't sure if there was a reason behind that. And yeah, close to immediately after we concede, and I don't know if we were ready in that second half. Well, maybe not ready at the back, but I don't know why they changed the back line in the second half, because I think from memory we had most of the percentage and we were actually in sort of their final third for a lot of it. We just couldn't break through, and it became quite annoying because every single counter attack sort of put us on edge from them. But yeah, I don't know. I think we shifted to something like a 3 fullbacks because maybe they were trying to make more chances up the front. But yeah. Football.
And then the difficult question of votes from you guys for this game. I think we sort of speculated in chat there wasn't too many names to pick from, but maybe I'll start with you, Dan, if you have any thoughts.
I've got just one thing to say on the Hughes thing. My only suggestion would be that he'd been riding a yellow card for a fair bit of that game. That perhaps I didn't see the second half. If it was maintaining the same energy of the first half, it was very back and forth, and that perhaps Walter was worried, that he was going to have to commit another foul or something and then he gets sent off.
Which is a good question as well. Sorry, just on that. I think he got a yellow card for Wigan, plus he's now on 4 for City. I don't know if that means he's suspended for the next game because it's a different league, but may well be.
I think the commentator said that he's one more,
but
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I think, but that's the only thing I could sort of feasibly think of, and I didn't see the second half, so I don't really know what was going on that much. But that's the only sort of suggestion I could make.
It was a weak yellow too. It's just a scuffle.
Yeah.
And then in terms of votes, I'm going to be a bit controversial. I'm just abstaining. I'm abstaining from voting. Sorry, Alex.
That's all right. Dill, did you have any thoughts on votes for this one?
If I could go off individual plays, I think it was Kamara that he did this one challenge, he saved pretty much a goal. It was a really good, and I don't know why he was the last man
furthest back. Yeah.
At the time too, just it sort of goes on those counter attacks I was talking about before. But I don't know, it sounded like Pandor had a good game. He's been sort of solid somewhat. I think he's working within the best of his ability, and those are the only two that come to mind.
No, fair enough. I went Kamara for the 3 as well. Palmer, I thought I'd give the 2 to, but even then on the second goal, he's pretty soft is maybe a harsh word, but he goes down pretty easily and then doesn't put a whole lot of effort in to get back to his feet to chase. So I did give him the 2, but I don't think a player really walked off the pitch unblemished in this one. And then Hughes for the 1, I thought he was fine. He was good. Don't know why he got taken off, but thought we'd just sweep that game from the memory, get that out of the way on this one. We can talk now. So potential new managers. I did see the odds released a little while ago. So Robbins has been installed as the favourite. Interestingly, without his longtime assistant, AV, what's his name? AV, I forget what his last name is. They split. They went separate ways in the off-season at Coventry, and so there was speculation that was part of why Coventry had a poor start, and Robbins ended up getting sacked. So, would still be a good appointment, but maybe not as good as he had been for Coventry. Cooper, second favourite. I think we spoke to him in pre-season before appointing Volta, because I think Cooper wanted a Premier League job and he's now lost his Premier League job, so maybe he would drop down to the Championship. Schumacher, third favourite, equal with Ismail Kartal, who I hadn't heard of, but guessed successfully before the podcast that he was a former Fenerbahce manager. So no surprises seeing a Fenerbahce manager's name linked. Schumacher, of course, formerly of Plymouth and Stoke. There was a few rumours that we'd approached him during the international break. So, we sort of take Acun at his word that we're starting the search now, but there might have been some feelers already put out. So I guess we'll see how quickly an appointment's made.
And Mourinho came out and said he didn't want to play European football. So, there you
go.
And he's been to some games with Acun, so who knows, man?
Might want to move back to England. I guess the other names of note, Matt Bloomfield, sort of fifth favourite, I think, currently top of League One with Wickham. I think they've won 7 or 8 games in a row. Sort of overperforming their stats a little bit, so there's a little bit of a question mark of how much of their form to buy into, but doing pretty well, exciting, scoring a lot of goals. I think I was saying to Dill before the episode, it's potentially a lazy link to say, just go for the most exciting manager at the league below, sort of like we did with Grant McCann when we hired him. David Moyes, equal with Bloomfield in the odds, would be a surprise one. And then the other one I wanted to call out was Nigel Pearson down at $20. Would be a blast from the past if he was to return. Would be interesting. And actually, level on odds with him is Scott Lindsay, who was the manager that I suggested about a month or so ago before he made the move to League Two. So that would certainly be a surprising one. But I'll start with you, Dan. Any thoughts on what you'd want to see in a manager who would excite you to come through the door? Or is it a case of just anyone, a fresh voice, and see what happens?
I don't know if it's a case of anyone, but
you could do it.
Look, I'll give it a go. If they're looking for applications, looking for call-outs, I'll throw my hat in the ring. I've no qualifications, but I've played the game at a much lower level than all of those players, so I'm sure they'll listen to what I have to say. No, actually, I think I'm worried now that he's the favourite to get installed, that he won't, that's just going to automatically rule him out for just because of our luck. But I think Mark Robbins is probably the one that gets me most interested. I just think that he kind of overperformed with Coventry. I think that they've climbed back up into the sort of championship and performed really, really well over the last couple of years. What made it to the FA Cup semi-final or whatever with United last season, like just really big, just really big achievements with like a club that was essentially sort of on the rise again. So I don't know. I think maybe there's the link there with Casey Palmer. Maybe he gets the best out of him.
Good shout.
I don't know. He's one that I just like when you look at sort of how Coventry went over the last couple of seasons, and they didn't start that great, but to go like why did he lose his job really? So I think that's who I'd like. I think I'd like to see come in. We had some really fun games against them last season. So
yeah, you can't get any more stereotypically British manager, experienced championship manager than him either, I don't think. Dill, what were your thoughts on potential manager?
I'm still wrapping my head around a lot of the names on this list because I haven't been following the championship for so long. But, looking at the win percentages on Robbins there, what is it, 39% at Coventry. I mean, on paper, it doesn't seem that great, but I always sort of put them in my mind. They always seem to do somewhat well, especially against us. So yeah, I don't know. I'm keen to see what everyone, like all the wild rumors that are going to unfold over the next 2-3 weeks, and jump on the bandwagons where they're taking off. And yeah, I'm sure we'll be talking.
Yeah, I feel like it's very much like when Shotta left, where yeah, again, I take your point, Dan. It's not a case of like anyone would excite me, but I do think it's a case of whoever is appointed, as long as they seem reasonable, I think the supporter base will be pretty united behind. And the bar is now so low that, you know, Volta had to basically outperform Rocinha, which was a really tough task because Rocinha got us to 7th last season, and that was what Volta was continuously compared against. Now the next manager is compared against Volta. It's a much easier task to, you know, perform well and impress the supporters. So I think in that sense, like it reminds me of like Rocinha came in, we got a 0-0 draw with Millwall, and everyone was just ecstatic because we'd kept a clean sheet, and we sort of took it from there. Yeah, I'm pretty open-minded on who the new manager will be. It'll be interesting as we start to get more like strong links to managers, and you know there could be a manager in a job currently who we end up trying to go after. It's not necessarily one out of a job, but I guess they're the ones who could potentially make the move quicker. And then obviously in the meantime we have Dawson back in charge. I think he needs you know, a couple more wins on his record to really boost his win percentage to almost the, you know, best of any City manager in such a small sample. Always helps. But you know, we sort of talked the other day, Dan, about, you know, it was a case of how many goals was Borough going to score, but how does the sacking and now Dawson taking charge of that game sort of change your perspective? You know, we were joking before, like your optimism was gone, but now it sort of flutters back to life. Like, does this get you a bit more excited again watching City, or is it more a case of they have to earn your trust back?
Oh, look, I think it's a bit of both. I am now like, I go, okay, well, I know I don't have to worry about like, or it's kind of like we can rule out a variable now. We can go, if they continue to perform like shit, well, maybe it wasn't actually all Walter. But I think I am. He did a great job of disillusioning and disenfranchising many of the fans, just with his comments and his actions. And so I think, sort of as I sort of said before, that someone who knows the club, loves the club, you know, has played for the club, all those things, I think, you know, it's going to be very much back to basics and go, this is what it means to be, you know, to be a Tiger, to play for Hull City. You know, you do X, Y, and Z. You dig in, you do this. You know, you have to, you know, play for the fans. Like, they're the ones, you know, they're spending their money to fill up the MKM. Like, and I think it's just going to be simplifying the game. And I think it really does change the complexion of this game completely, because as much as, you know, everyone likes to joke about the new manager bounce, like, and it always seems to be against us, you know, whenever, you know, another club gets a new manager, they seem to come up against us and do us over. I don't know whether we'll do Middlesbrough over, but I think that, you know, a conversation about, well, they're just going to tear us apart. You know, I'm not probably I don't necessarily think it's going to be, I think I said maybe like a 4-1 loss or something. I kind of don't really see it like that. I think with Dorse being, I think instilling a much more pragmatic approach to the game, where it's just like, we just need to get a point, we just get points out of this, whatever that looks like. That I think, you know, I still don't know if we'll get anything out of it, but I sort of see it more as being like maybe a 1 or 2-0 sort of affair now, and a much you know, more solid performance against, you know, a team who's in great form, I guess, despite losing to Blackburn this morning.
Yeah. And Dill, how do you feel
about the match coming up? Yeah, I think hopefully I'll be putting in 1-1 as my prediction, as always. Okay. It's the safest one at the moment. Or well, actually, probably 0-0 would be great. But yeah, I think it's a bit of a new lease on life, and I think people talk about, like, you know, it's a hard reset, hopefully, for the fans, the players, the management, and let's treat it that way. And yeah, I don't know. I'm just, since you mentioned Slater, like I'm really keen to see how he performs.
Oh, it's gonna be it's gonna be
weekend.
so interesting to see players potentially spike, which, to be fair, isn't always a necessarily good thing, because it suggests the players have sort of down tools to an extent, and you want the players to be putting in 100% effort each game. But like Dan said, it sort of removes that variable now that if the players continue to be poor, you can't, there's no Volta to blame anymore. There's nowhere to hide for the players. So I think it's going to be very interesting one way or another. But we've got that all to look forward to this weekend. So look, thank you both for joining me for this special episode. Thanks, Dill.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan, as well.
No worries. It was it's nice to come on and talk about that. The renewed hope.
That's it. Yeah, hopefully.
Doom and gloom lately. So.
Yep.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, look, we will be back for our regular programming next week, hopefully off the back of a nice smash and grab win over Middlesbrough on the weekend. But until then, come on, City.